and then we're gonna have this run the properly.
George Jones, I live on Clover Lane, and I just have a question. Why are we hung up on a 5-member planning commission? We have a board of supervisors, we have 3. Why do we have 5? I don't understand the number. And we're struggling to get to that number 5, instead of concentrating on getting a number that makes sense. I mean, I personally think it's gonna be hard in a small community like this to get 5 people to sit on that commission.
Yeah, no, I agree. We have 5. We just need to make sure the 5th one has the time and is able to dedicate that to us. That's all. If we so choose here.
But I don't know what dictates how many you're on.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
just
sure
don't
either.
understand the number 5.
And maybe it's 5 because there's, a greater chance of at least 3 of them being able to make it than if there's a 3-man board, 1 can't make it.
And just because there's a 5-person board doesn't mean residents shouldn't show up and voice concerns or add value. Like, just because you're not on the board doesn't mean that you can't voice an opinion that can be taken to heart by the planning commission as well. So I would encourage anybody, if you have knowledge or development experience or understanding how planning and zoning works, I encourage you to attend a meeting and provide input to those meetings. So I am not at a point where I would appoint Mr. Ditzler, only because I feel like we need to advertise it on the website or out front and make sure that we have appropriate time, that we've actually advertised. If it's just timing that he just happened to be here and he filled out a form and, that to me, that's luck and happenstance, but it's not fair to the rest of the community. If they
I was
weren't
expecting like an interview
Yep.
or something. I turned it in several weeks ago, so I completely understand where you're coming from.
Normally, you would interview in the, you would
Yeah.
speak up at the meeting.
Okay.
So,
Well, I did that
but we
several
would do
weeks ago.
that
I
when
just
we
didn't
have
do it from
a,
there.
yeah, we would do that when we have a few
Okay.
candidates.
Well,
And if
I'm
there's
just
only
saying,
one,
I completely understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, so, thank you.
great, okay. So I think we need to advertise for that. And if you wanna hold off on reappointing, Jared, we'll have a conversation with him. Either have him attend the workshop meeting in April, or one of us can have a conversation, that's if one of us can have a conversation with him, the 2 of us can't. Right?
Of the 11 meetings over the last 4 years, how many did he attend? Because usually in the meeting minutes, you sometimes have like an attendance on there. So how many of those?
That we'd have to go back and look at all the minutes, so.
I guess the other question that is here is how are we staggering these dates?
Yeah, that would be a
So
good question.
this-
It shouldn't all end at the same time.
So they won't. So we got, right now we have I think Mr. Marriott and Buck Reed, they end at the same time, which is okay because there's only 2. Buckman staggered out, and if we reappoint Jared or whoever to this term here, he staggered out as well. The reason I did it this way, or it was suggested this way from PSATs, was to avoid this. They actually told me that
Jared's would end,
Jared's is over, so it
would
would
end
end
at
at
this, but it would end at the
Rick's is
same,
up to 26.
no, but it would end at the same time as Buck Reed and
Okay.
Bob Marriott.
So-
So that would be,
The
this
abbrevi-
one would actually need to be a different timeline.
So that was the abbreviation. So I had the email that I had shared with everybody from PSATs. They recommended we could have knocked one of these terms down to 3 years. Or, any way we wanted to stagger it out, where there was only 2 at one time. That's what it was. The other thing was, it was explained to me, if there's a vacancy on the planning commission after X amount of months, it can stay vacant until the next calendar year. So there's really no need to put the other one there. We could just let Jared's seat just slide away, if we chose to.
Right.
I just think it's a poor idea because we have these developments coming in. I think we gotta staff it. We have people that wanna
Okay.
be there.
So we're saying,
And the last time we advertised this,
Jared and
3 or
Jared,
4 people to put in.
Jared's position, whether it's with him or someone else, and Rick Buckman's, whether it's with him or someone else. We just need to make sure that the 2 of them don't end at the same time or end at the same time as Buck Reed and Bob Marriott. That's all.
It just.
So they-
So they might be
two at a time,
abbreviated
right?
terms.
Okay, so we're saying you wanna keep Buck and Marriott on for the 4 years here. Okay, what about Myers? Because he was picking up Heartline's term. When's that?
Myers
It ends the year before.
Myers and Buckman can stay the same.
Okay. we keep Myers and Buckman the same, so what are we saying with the term that Jared's in right
We can
now?
knock it down to 25. So we reappoint him for the 2 years? Do
Doesn't,
that?
I thought the term that Dave was in ended at 25,
Dave-
is that not accurate? Dave,
So
22,
when-
23,
Well,
Myers
there-
picked it up 24, 25, so that's
Yes.
4.
Oh, so
Yep.
you're saying Myers should end
Yeah,
25?
he should end here at 25.
Okay, and then, I don't know,
Yeah, and then we could let this one here
Yeah.
go 3
So-
years as well and drop one.
Yeah.
in.
okay, so we're saying just Jared, the term that Jared's in is gonna go to 26 or to 25?
26.
Okay. All right.
Oh, Jesus, it's
So we have a five-man board, it takes 3 years to replenish them.
Yep. I
Um,
don't know.
I still think we should take, like, this is fine, I think we should table it as far as these dates are concerned, until we review it with the solicitor. Just make sure that this is okay.
That makes sense.
Perfect. All right, so we're
Sure
gonna
she's on
punt
board?
this.
I'm good with that.
All right, resignation of planning commission member, announced resignation, so Mr. Buckman has resigned from the planning commission. We will be taking applications, for that planning commission seat as well, so there is actively 2 seats on the vacant, or on the, planning commission. So if anybody wants to volunteer, knows of anybody, please ask them to submit.
Do you want to read his resignation letter?
Oh, sure, Sean.
Just ask the question.
It's long.
It sure
Do
is.
we really want to read that?
Bill, I received your email Friday morning, and although disappointed, I am not surprised. When you came to the ski slope last month for advice on open space, I thought that perhaps we had discovered some common ground, and just maybe, this could be something that everyone could get behind, both your supporters and detractors. At your work meeting last Wednesday, I thought we had made some further progress by agreeing to have the Planning Commission spearhead this effort since I had some experience. I was the county controller and a board member of Montgomery County Planning Commission when the county did their initial $100 million open space plan. As you know, I had already given you contact information for someone who could give advice in the event the township wanted to do a borrowing to fund this program. After the meeting on Wednesday evening, I had already started reviewing open space plans in other nearby townships. I was also planning to bring someone in to talk to us from a township which has had a lot of success with very little borrowing by leveraging other county and state money. Unfortunately, your recent decision continues a pattern of your young administration, getting rid of someone with experience and historical knowledge of Upper Frederick. In your haste to put your people in as replacements, you appointed a white supremacist as one of the auditors. The Republican Party refused to endorse this individual when he ran, and then, when there was an opening, you went ahead and appointed him. I brought this up to you privately, since this could really make the township look bad. A reporter called me on Friday asking about this. Now it's out there. You should ask him to resign. You say that you want the planning commission to be more proactive. I think that if you ask anyone who actually attended our meetings the past couple of years, they will tell you that we have been very productive. If you really want our planning commission to get to work reviewing the ordinances and the comprehensive plan, why would you replace 3 and maybe 4 knowledgeable members with this new inexperienced members? 2 of the 3 are good people and will eventually be good members. The other one worked for me when he was younger, and I caught him stealing one of my trucks, which makes it very hard for me to work with this individual. I also brought this up to you privately, and you said you already knew about this. Since you don't trust or take advice from anyone in place prior to your administration, I feel that I am wasting my time, and for that reason, I have made the difficult decision to resign from the Upper Frederick Township Planning Commission effective immediately. Wishing only good things for Upper Frederick. Richard S. Buckman.
Is Mr. Buckman here? No? Okay. So to address this, It's a lie. So when I came to the ski slope last month, I had already had everything for the open space committee. I didn't go seeking advice. I went to him to ask him about a bond that he had brought up after the only planning commission we had this year. Spoke about it in great length. He said he hadn't been familiar with it since I think the 80s or 90s, and that he was gonna get back to me. I didn't hear from him. I eventually go to the ski slope to talk to him. He didn't have this gentleman's contact any longer, but he was gonna reach out and see what he could come up with. In the last meeting, he eventually comes to me, says that gentleman's no longer interested, and gave me a new contact. So what I've come to the conclusion is, he'd be starting where I started from, okay? So that's completely untrue. The white supremacist comment, I reached out to this gentleman. And in fact, whenever we were replacing Mr. Frisco's appointment for auditor, Mrs. Tackett is the one who came to us and said, hey, I reached out to Mr. Blair and said, he's still interested. He didn't win, but he's still interested if you guys wanted to appoint him. Mrs. Fisher and myself, we go to appointing. Mr. Frisco objects, or he doesn't object, he just wants to abstain. We pause. This is reflected.
I said no.
We reflect this in the video of this meeting. We ask him, is there a reason? Do you know something we don't know? Do you have something you want to talk about? Nothing I can substantiate, he says. So Mr. Buckman in his letter says that we did this. Well, while I'm at the ski slope, he informs me of this. I then come home and I call Ms. Fisher and I says, do you know anything about this? No. Call the township. Nobody knows anything about this. I then call the NAACP and I says, what is this? What's going on here, And they goes, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't even have this guy on our radar. So I goes, okay. So this, false accusation comes out by Mr. Buckman. I go to the gentleman. I drove to his house. So I drive to his house and I ask him, hey, what do you have to say about this? I knock on his door, he doesn't answer. I call Miss Kate. She gives me his cell phone and right home. I ask him, I says, hey, I need you to address something here. I says, I just had a planning commissioner, chairman resign. In the wake of it, he tells me you're a white supremacist. And he denies everything, told me that he was running for office. I believe he was running against Mr. Frisco's campaign manager, Dave Hartline. And he said a smear campaign started. He said it was all over identity politics. He says, he gives me his explanation. He said nothing ever came of it and that he thought it was a poor decision. So then he wrote me his resignation letter. He said, I can't believe they're going to start this smear campaign. So I can relate to this young man because in every single meeting you see what happens to me. You see what they tell everybody in this township with me. So let me read you his resignation letter. He says, Mr. Lamon, thank you so much for giving me a chance to answer what appears to be a slanderous accusation. I have dealt with this before. Many years ago, I saw what is now becoming obvious, that identity politics is destroying our nation. There is no better answer to identity-based political division than a nation founded on ideals rather than ethnicity. That was the belief of our founding fathers. And that is what I believe I have promoted. That thinking is not popular today and is all too often labeled as racist or white supremacist. I believe that those who promote identity politics are far from solving racial division, but rather promoting racial division. I could fight these slanders on many fronts, but with age, I have moved on. I now see our problems are deeper, not political, but religious and philosophical. God has blessed me with a wonderful life, and I feel the need to give back to my community, but I'm getting old now, and I need to find ways for me to serve my community that do not invite slanderous accusations. So effective immediately, I hereby resign from the Auditor's Board. Best wishes to you, to our supervisors. Please keep Upper Frederick rural, green, and peaceable. Thomas Blair. So I get a resignation here because one man sad wants to walk out the door spewing lies on his way out, all because he can't have an open space committee. I gladly accept this resignation. I do think he brought a lot of value to my board, but because you can't have an open space committee, you're gonna take your ball and go home, I find that childish. I find the lies childish. When you can't come in here and stand up for yourself, I find that childish. I stand by everything I've ever said to this community, and nobody else can back that up from the old administration here. So when he's saying the planning commission needs to be more proactive, I think you should ask anyone who attended our meetings the past couple of years. I asked Mr. Buckman in the last meeting what he's done the last 10 years. I'm not saying he did nothing, but he gave me 2 things that he's done in the last 3. I got developments coming. 1990, Perkiomen Crossing came in here and nobody was prepared. Nobody. So that's how we get that. What have we done since then to protect ourselves? When I asked what's the fair share and nobody knows, yeah, I find that gross negligence. It's not just me, it's the residents of this town. We all pay taxes, we deserve better. I get we have a small pool of people to grab from. But it's not just, you know, a group of friends that want to run this town. When people volunteer, we chase them away. Let's invite them in. I don't care what party you're from. I don't care what color you are. You want to work here, you come here. That's what I did. So all this junk here, I could care less about. I see that he's Area 1 Republican leader. I know you were too, Sean. He told me that he saw a little bit of you in him when you came here, but he also told me a bunch of negative stuff about you. So he doesn't just say a negative about me. It was a whole lot about you as well. So I'm sure he's not going to want to step up to the plate and say that. So that's his resignation. You all can choose to believe it. You don't have to. You can. I don't really care. The point is I'm going to move on. And if there's anybody here that's in positions that don't want to be here, you can move on too. There's other people who do want to be here. And we're not looking to be shunned just because we want to be a part of something. I think we should be accepting of everybody who wants to be here. So there's your resignation letter. The Open Space Committee thing that Mr. Buckman was upset about, I wrote him a letter. He wants to grab it, he wanted to take control. So I write him an email afterwards and I say hello to everybody. Mr. Frisco, Ms. Fisher, all views that are part of this planning commission now. And I wrote, after further research and consideration, I feel it is best to staff the Open Space Committee with its own separate personnel and keep the planning commission focused on its core responsibilities, which it was established for. After all, that is why we have 2 committees, both of these committees in the first place. For reference, I have listed the roles and duties of each, the Planning Commission and Open Space Committee below at the end of this. Mr. Buckman, I know I personally appreciate your offer to take on this role, and I hope you will still work with the committee in giving any valuable input you have or would like to provide to the committee with. As always, I would encourage you and welcome you and anyone else to attend any meetings this committee may have moving forward. Also, as mentioned in our workshop meeting 4/3/24, I feel that the Planning Commission already has or will definitely soon have a full plate to deal with on its own. Our community expects the Planning Commission to be working diligently on protecting our community from as much future development as allowable by law. They also heard from me that open space, the residents when I ran for office, that open space and land preservation was at the tip of my spear during my 21 campaign and again with Ms. Fisher in 23. The community fully expects this new board to dedicate a committee to doing just that, and I in turn to promote just that. With this said, I would like to encourage the Planning Commission to commence reviewing our comprehensive plan, zoning and developmental ordinances that we currently have. I would also encourage the Planning Commission to also reach out to Norm from LTL to seek suggestions, recommendations, and seek just general input in areas where we're all unsure of what we can do. Once the new solicitor is in place, I will be requesting a full and complete review of all these items with Ms. Cousteau, the new solicitor, and Norm from LTL in hopes of tightening our grip on the policies we currently have in place, along with finding new ordinances as well. As the new board has made clear, since taking office, our priority is to be proactive in getting out in front of changes being brought to Upper Frederick in the form of zoning, land use, and land development. It's not nasty, it's not mean, it's asking him basically to do the job that we put him there to do. I'm not saying Mr. Buckman was lazy, he didn't want to do it, or anything like that. I'm just saying, I didn't see it, and neither did this community. So again, the resignation, I fully accept it, I'm sorry. You either want to be a part of the team or you don't. As Norm, you said to me after that planning commission, team up or Frederick, what'd I say to you? Well, that's the best friggin' philosophy I've heard in a long time. That's what I said to you. And Norm, I believe I've already talked to you about what we could do about reviewing these ordinances, how we could work with the Central Perkiomen Regional Planning Commission. I brought these up, so this is no big surprise. Don't anybody in here go, surprise, I'm just finding out. This is what I've been saying. So I accept the resignation. Anything you want to say, Mr. Frisco, you done?
About which item are we doing here? We're still on number 2?
No, we were the resignation of the planning commission. So we announced the resignation. We're going to move on to number 3, requesting volunteers for the open space committee. As I said here and spoke to Ms. Cousteau about before I came here, this was staffed in the past. Mr. Murray, Ms. Desiree, and I'm not sure your last name. Desiree, I'm sorry. I know you were on there, Mr. Murray was on there, and as far as I went back, I believe 17, I got you guys being on this board. I had asked in the last meeting, where somebody had asked in the last meeting, Mr. Frisco did, and Mr. Murray, you said there was no traction, correct?
Correct.
Is what you guys had got. So I
There's
looked at,
a lot of meetings where people that were on the board, other than Mrs. Keenan and I, that didn't show up, those kinds of things.
right. So I do want to staff this committee here. Nowhere in our policies does it say I have to, go put out a volunteer list. We could surely do that, but we're having trouble staffing regular committees. Do we still want to put out a form here? Because in the past, we just appointed people. We generally ran a 3-man or 4-man board. There was never really anything. It was a chair, it was a supervisor, and it was common folk just from the township, or, I'm sorry, Mr. Murray, were you the parks back then too, I think?
Yeah.
I think you were. So, I see you wear many hats. I do. I have no complaints with you at Parks and Rec, everybody talks about you. I appreciate what you do, and I do nothing but speak highly of you, whether you believe that or not, that's what I do. I appreciate the Swamp Creek, I've never participated, but I'm fat and old. There's no way I'm running anything. But I do want to staff this. If there is something that you've accomplished in the past, I would love to hear about it. I do have some folks that have already actively been working on it, who would be more than willing to put in their volunteer form, or we can go ahead and staff this board and move forward.
So you already have people lined up?
They need to.
Well, I didn't say I had people lined up, Sean. I said I ran on this in 21 and 23.
You said you had people working on it.
Well, we've all been working, well, we weren't even elected at the township when I started
No, I
working on it.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I think he's commenting on what you said. I had people working on
Oh,
this.
the legal.
And all
jargon.
I'm gonna say is, back to, I'm a process person, so
Sure.
if people wanna join this